Ethics in social media marketing. First off, there's honesty. Social media marketing is based largely on personal interactions. Honesty is highly valued. We've been talking about that quite a lot in this chapter. Be an open book. Be as honest as you possibly can be without giving away trade secrets, but make sure that you are upfront about your thoughts, your beliefs, your standards, your practices. Be honest about it. Second, privacy. It's helpful to have as much information about your target audience as possible, but obtaining that data should be balanced against protecting user privacy. So, as much as information is valuable, we also don't want to overly take advantage of our user base and grab information that may be too personal, or to sell or give away information without our user base's knowledge. That's something that we have to guard against. Employ passive approaches that will allow people to input information voluntarily, as opposed to just collecting information and snooping on people and putting that into a database. Don't collect any more information than is necessary about users. If you're going to do an email marketing campaign, get emails. You don't necessarily need all sorts of other types of information on a particular user just to send out an email. Be careful that information does not leak out to outside parties. Again, respect the information of your customer base and don't let it get into the wrong hands or inappropriate hands. That information has been trusted to you, has been collected by you, has been given to you. Make sure you handle that information properly. Thirdly, respect. Showing respect for people means treating them as equals, as reasonable individuals with goals and lives of their own. I should say lives there, not lies. So the way that I say this is treat humans like they're humans. And this goes beyond social media marketing, This helps with the discourse of what we do in not just social media marketing, but in every aspect of life. If we recognize that people are people, we all have thoughts, feelings, emotions, attitudes, different points of view, and we respect people for having those sorts of things, the discourse will be much easier to have. And we also want to, besides the issue of discussion, also respecting the different assets of people, time, money, resources, not using people as pawns, not using people just as a way to earn money, but valuing them for them, showing them respect. Do not present manipulative messages, create false identities for testimonials, or hijack user profiles for promotional purposes. Again, if you're doing things not on the up and up, you will most likely be found out. Fourthly, responsibility. When a customer has a valid complaint, a technical problem arises, or some other crisis looms, there are 3 steps to take. First off, acknowledge. Find out what the problem is and take responsibility for the situation. Secondly, apologize. If someone is angry, first attempt to calm him down. Apologize and determine what would give the individual resolution. Find a way to solve the issue. Once that is established, act on it. Implement promised changes or make other restitution. Inform the complainant that the problem is being addressed. So make sure that you are taking the corrective actions, that you follow through on that, and that you're very conscious about resolving those problems for your customer. It's important to avoid promising too much while apologizing, because then it may be impossible to act. Taking responsibility must be done in realistic ways. An empty gesture is worse than a modest promise. So one good rule of thumb here is to under-promise, but over-deliver. So if you only promise a certain level, but you give much more than what you've promised, that's also going to create a certain amount of credibility and respect for you and your brand, because not only did you solve an issue to a customer's satisfaction, you did much more than that, which makes the person that you're responding to feel that much more valued. All right, taking a look now at personal branding in particular, observing social media etiquette, helping you to achieve your personal branding goals. Several lessons here that we can take. Lesson number 1, use different accounts or profiles for your professional and personal communications. This is a way for you to help keep your business life separate from your personal life. And be careful how you define personal. There may be times where it may be valuable in your professional world to state a certain opinion or to take a certain position, but be very careful as to how you do that, when you do that, and why. You can very well run the risk of alienating a certain part of your customer base if you put out personal opinions and they wind up being seen as negative by your customers. And that's a judgment call that you have to make based on the opinions and the principles that you have. Nevertheless, it's always good to have different accounts for your professional profile and your personal profile. Lesson 2. Don't post pictures and videos of people without their permission. Make sure they know that you are doing what you are doing. Get permission from people so that you respect their privacy, you respect their identity. Just a good practice to do. Lesson 3. Don't play the game of the internet troll. Don't bite the bait of when people get on and are making nasty comments or being mean or trying to incite riots and that sort of thing. That's not going to end well. Now, moderating blog posts, that's a good idea. You want to try to limit the amount of harsh talk that is out there and negativity, whether it's with your brand or with interactions with other users. On many platforms, you may be able to delete the comments or block the comments altogether, or block the commenters themselves. That's something that you may want to keep in mind. A couple of exceptions to keep in mind with this. In a personal situation, if the behavior becomes threatening, you may need to carefully consider bringing it to the attention of the relevant authority. It's something where you may want to take a screenshot of what has happened or somehow otherwise keep a record of what has happened. And depending on the laws in your area, you may be able to take recourse with either the moderators of the platform or with legal authorities, whatever you need to do. In a business situation, if you see a flood of comments, civil or not, about a particular issue, it needs to be investigated. You need to find out who posted what and why and what effects there could be, and perhaps take corrective action as necessary. Lesson number 4, don't react too quickly. Take time to think and to respond in a kind manner. Don't let yourself get caught up in the moment. Don't kind of shoot from the hip and say something that you may regret or take an action that you may regret. It is much better for you to stop, take a deep breath, think about how you're going to respond, why you're going to respond that way, what the consequences of that sort of response may be. Take all of that into account. Fifthly, at all costs, avoid the drunken post, or the tired post, or the angry post. Basically, any post in which you are not necessarily of sound body and especially sound mind. Because once you've sent a message out, a message can never really be recalled. When it's out on the internet, it's out there forever because someone else could take a screenshot of something that you have done and it could come back to bite you. Lastly, don't put anything anywhere on the internet that you would not want a potential employer, your boss, a current customer, or potential client to read. I would add your mother or your grandmother. Make sure that the things that you put out there are very intentional, have a very specific purpose, and might not come back to bite you in the end. A careless statement can come back to do significant damage. Now, making ethical decisions. Deciding which practices to employ will be complex and will be based on both the tools available and the ethical limits and norms of the online community. So these things are going to be different from platform to platform, from industry to industry, and of course taking in your own philosophies and the philosophies and ideals of your customer base as well. In a situation where ethical standards could possibly be breached, it is best to err on the side of caution and avoid a potentially unethical action. This takes a lot of consideration and thought. And again, the idea is that when we do things online, we want to do them with a very deliberate purpose in mind and understanding what the consequences may be. Now, what if we're talking to an international audience, taking a look at things from a global perspective? Communicating across national boundaries is an essential skill for any social media marketer. First off, we need to keep in mind that there may be cultural differences to consider. Do some research beforehand to determine which regions or nationalities are active on each social media network. Then tailor communications on each platform to reference likely areas of interest or commonality. So you may want to do a certain post for people in the United States as opposed to Latin America, as opposed to Europe, wherever you're posting different things for whichever particular audience is. And that may also be true for regional things. You may post something different for the Southeast as you would the Northeast as you do the Midwest. Depending on their culture as well as personal preferences, different people have varying standards of contact and familiarity with others met through social media. And just customs and cultures in general may have differences in thought and philosophy that you need to consider. Avoid confusing your global audience. Avoid making jokes or references overly dependent on popular culture, puns, domestic sporting events, things like that. Even if it's something that may be ubiquitous around the world, if it's a post that is going to be a long-term sort of thing, and most things on the internet are, you may want to keep in mind who may see this in the future. And the things that you're saying now, will they have relevance in the future? If you make jokes that are only funny to native speakers, or jokes that could easily get lost in translation, could leave international users feeling excluded. To avoid confusion, it's best to make messages polite, concise, and direct. Before posting, mentally ask whether there is any part of a message that could easily be misinterpreted or cause your overall idea to be misunderstood. For the sake of clarity, for all of those within your customer base. One tool that might be helpful for you is Google Translate or some other sort of online translation tool. Be careful when using online translations to create new content, because sometimes the results can be rather rough, or they can lack important context. Some of these translating tools will translate words literally word for word and not take into account the grammar and syntax of the other language that is being translated into. And keep in mind that just as there are different dialects in the English language, different words and different meanings for words that we have in different parts of the United States or in the US versus the UK versus Australia, that those things can happen in other languages as well. So Latin American Spanish is going to be different from European Spanish, for example. One good way to determine whether a message is likely to be misinterpreted is to translate that message into several other languages and then back into English, and then look at that translation back into English and ask, is the content still recognizable? Again, it's the idea where you want to try to convey your message in the best way possible, and the more you know about how something's going to be read in a different culture, in a different language, in a different mindset, the better it's going to be for you as you're reaching out to a global audience. Best practices following the rules of engagement for social media marketing. And there are 9 of these that we're going to consider. First off, use social media channels as intended. Be aware of how the community is using channels and stay within the existing norms of communication. Meet the audience where it is at. Don't expect them to change for you. You reach them on their level. Second, don't be a dirty spammer. Don't send people in a network unwanted messages without their permission. Don't use your platform simply to continually sell things to people, but be a relevant and a contributory voice in the conversation that's going on online. Thirdly, assume people don't care about your product. Most people on social media care about saving money or solving a specific problem. And just because someone follows you as a company or is friends on your page doesn't mean that they want to endlessly hear about your business. So people are not always going to be as enthusiastic about your products as you are. Fourthly, have a personality. People connect with other people on a deeper level than they connect with a particular brand. This is the social aspect of social media. Sharing some personality helps to build a common ground and trust. And there is a professional line to be drawn, however, but it's a bad idea to get too personal or to share intimate details, whether you're talking about your personal page or the company page. So you want to keep certain things offline, TMI and that sort of thing. However, you do want to show a little bit of personality, a little bit of humanity in the posts that you provide. Fifth, provide context when seeking connections. For social media marketing, it is necessary to expand your circle to people who may help provide business now or down the road. Therefore, having a tasteful way to add new connections that may rarely or never be seen in person is extremely important. So you want to be able to reach out as far as you possibly can, but you also want to make sure that the connections you're making are valuable both for you and for them. When sending a request to connect with someone, it's helpful to provide context for the connection. Something like, hey, I saw that you emailed me asking about something. Would you like to be included on a list? Or, hey, I heard about you from a common friend of ours. Would it be okay if we became friends? Provide some sort of a connection, some sort of motivation that makes the trying to reach out and connect with people a little more palatable. Be transparent. Companies have to be upfront with their information. Be prepared to address issues or problems in an open and honest manner. Be real. We've been saying that quite a bit. Seventh, talk about the topic. It's a good idea for a company to join a discussion, but it needs to make sure to focus on what the conversation is about and not just do self-promotion. So again, people don't want to constantly hear you hawk the things that you have to sell, but they want to know that you have a certain knowledge base about the industry, about issues revolving around the industry and your products. Engage in the conversation. Talk about the topic that is being addressed and not about the product or service being marketed. Again, it adds to your credibility. Social media profiles are not billboards. Most people are not excited to see posts from random businesses on their personal sites. So don't do it. At least don't do it very often. It's best to engage in discussions without doing overt marketing unless it is directly on topic. Again, engage in conversation. Don't engage in constant hawking of stuff. Finally, and most importantly, be nice. Look for opportunities to publicly or privately thank people who help out or make positive comments about your company or about your product. Also look for opportunities to give back to other people on the same social community. Promote their events, their blog posts, their products. Look for ways to collaborate with people to build them up as others have built you up, or the ways that you want others to build you up. It's kind of that idea of do to others as you would have them do to you. It works in the social media landscape as well.